Despite their defeat at Hel Almine, Imperial forces continue their campaign in the Orc world of Fungus. This time the 3rd Legio Metallica and Commander Dakun's 1st and 2nd Division of the 8th Steel Legion have marched upon the Orc factory city of Gorkha. Big Boss Drunga knows that Kundra's triumphant forces at Hel Almine will arrive at Gorkha and Turnate. Will they make it in time to save their city? There are several defensive installations in the factory city which threaten the Imperial army. Commander Dakun will want to destroy these installations to protect his forces. Critical to Imperial success will be the destruction of 3 Orc factories. They must destroy at least 2 of these factories to win the battle. Anything less will be an Orc success. A factory will be considered destroyed once Imperial saboteurs have planted explosives within their walls. The factories are the refinery, the Gargant facility, the tank factory. The factory city of Gorkha is surrounded by thick defensive walls, a patchwork of towers, a stronghold with houses reinforced with thick boulders, brick and raw sheet metal. Mounted on the buildings are armaments including a super zap gun, death ray and super lifted dropper. Dozens of Orc big guns are transported and placed on the walls to strengthen the firepower. To the rear, a building mounts 4 cruise missiles and a blaster Gargant is also detected. The buildings conceal hordes of Orcs determined to protect their city and are backed up by a squadron of Stuka and an Orc lander. As the huge Imperial army rolls into position, they kick up a cloud of sand which drifts over the city, obscuring it from view. Commander Dakun orders his legions to form up. A Shadow Sword Super Heavy Tank Company are supported by a Lehman Russ Company and they are placed at the forefront of the attack. Lumbering between them are 2 mighty Warlord Titans, Justitia Solemni and Ira Canentes of the Legio Metallica. To the rear, the Imperial artillery deploy between the sand dunes, 2 batteries of Manticore and a Death Strike missile launcher. In the skies, 3 fighter bomber Marauder squadrons carry out their patrol manoeuvres. The enemy are literally at their gates. The Orcs brace themselves, for the siege of Gorkha is about to begin. A technological legacy of the Golden Age, mole and termite tunnelers bore into the ground. As the boring machines disappear beneath the surface, the vibration in the ground around Imperial forces dissipates, a sure sign that the machines are well on their way to their objectives. Cruise missiles are sent whizzing through the sky from the Orc fortress, leaving trails of black smoke across the skyline. The Imperial front line comes under heavy bombardment. They score a direct hit. A Super Heavy is damaged, while 2 Shadow Swords are obliterated. Dakun orders his forces to concentrate all the barrage firepower against the cruise missile launcher building in the adjacent fortress. 2 batteries of Manticore open fire, followed by 2 Death Strike missiles, one from the Death Strike missile launcher and another from the Warlord Ira Canentes, both loaded with plasma warheads. From beyond the wall, a column of fire rises from the rubble of the Orc missile launcher structure. The Warlord Titan Justitia Solemni, followed by Shadow Swords and Lehman Russ, advance towards Gorkha's walls, unleashing a massive barrage of fire. However, their shots go astray in the smoke and sand-filled skies, and for now, the city's walls hold. The Shadow Sword Company seize the initiative and unleash their awesome firepower. This time with greater effectiveness, blasting apart one of the city wall defences. The Blaster Gargant directs a powerful barrage at the Lehman Russ Company, pulverising 2 tanks, while in the sky the last cruise missile hurtles towards a Shadow Sword but miraculously misses it. 2 batteries of Manticore retaliate with their own missile salvo, trashing 2 squid catapults. And the twin volcano cannon of Titan Justitia Solemni target the city's wall, and send great slabs of concrete into the air, widening the breach in the Orc defences. While the Warlord Titan Ira Canentes soaks up heavy fire from the tower big guns, a Gorgon mechanised infantry unit and Rough Riders platoon join the fray alongside the Warlord Titans and the Lehman Russ Company. Behind them, even more Imperial reinforcements flood the battlefields. 2 platoons of stormtroopers, 2 Warhound Titans, a Praetorian Servitors detachment also mounted on Chimera tanks, and 2 mechanised infantry detachments. The damage on the outskirts of the city is beginning to mount up, and the orcs haven't even been hit with the full might of the Imperial force. Commander Dakin senses that the city is now ripe for attack. From inside Gorka, 3 mighty super zap fortresses crawl slug-like across the desert, leaving a thick tar trail in their wake. They train their powerful cannons against the shadow swords and inflict heavy damage upon them. 5 black contrails appear in the sky as orc fighter bomber Stuka hurtle towards the shadow swords. Their hail of missiles is bolstered by a massive barrage from the blaster Gargant. A column of flame erupts from one, while the remaining 2 super heavy tanks, heavily damaged, are forced into retreat. And the orc forces in Gorka roar their approval. Imperial retaliation is immediate. Marauder bombers plunge from Gorka's grey skies. 5 bombers in 2 waves repeatedly barrage the Super Zap Fortress Brigade, while the last 2 intercept the Stukas, shooting one down and forcing the others to slam into a storm of Imperial anti-aircraft fire. One after another, the 4 orc fighters crash to the ground, each followed by a roar of flame. An orc lander quickly swoops in to make an unexpected assault. Its metal doors drop open with a clang, and an orc horde spews out. The unfortunate 4th Infantry Detachment suffer the brunt of their attack, and soon all that is left of them is a pile of corpses. Once again, though, the Imperial forces are swift to respond to the threat. A Stormtroopers platoon mounted on Valkyries opens fire at the orc mob, supported by the fire of the combat servitors, the Skitarii light artillery, and an entire mechanised infantry detachment. While the Warlord Titan Justitia Solemni advances, destroying what remains of the retreating orc mob, the Warlord Titan Ira Canentes moves to engage the grounded orc lander. A bright burst of laser burner reduces the orc vessel to a steaming stain of steel on the sand. The Manticore artillery receive the order to barrage the Flak Tanks Brigade inside the orc tank facility. They clear the way for the Marauder bombers to begin their attack run. However, within Gorka there are plenty of orc vehicles still in the fight. General Dakun gazes to the horizon. The orcs swarm on the walls inside the stronghold. With a deep sigh, he draws his bolt pistol. To command the respect of his soldiers, he must lead by example. Live, fight, and die like the rest of them. Orc tanks pummel the advancing Imperial army, and a series of detonations tears through the ranks of the approaching stormtroopers. Miraculously though, only a few soldiers fall to the ground. The Warlord Titans act together to make a double move to assault the city walls. There they unleash a storm of volcano cannon, melta cannon and plasma cannon. But it's the last shot of the Shadow Sword Company which sends the watchtower toppling. It smashes to the ground, crunching wood, concrete and orc bone alike. Another breach in the walls is opened. Dakun orders his Imperial army to press home their advantage. A Warhound and Lehman Russ tanks surge forward to do just that. As they burst through the gates of Gorka, under fire orc battle wagons are forced into retreat, but the response is swift and deadly. The big boss fortress pummels the entire 9th Mechanised Detachment with a heavy barrage that wipes them out. More heavy artillery stationed on the west wall hit the Warlord Titan Solemni with a massive barrage. Its void shields collapse, and a successful strike from a superlifter dropper literally rips the turbo laser destructor from the Titan and sends it cartwheeling through the sand. However, the Titan is not defeated. Stormboys and a big guns mob, ably assisted by more artillery, blow the last 2 Shadow Swords apart. To make matters worse, the barrage broadsides the Warhound Titan. It drunkenly staggers to and fro, but the Princeps inside fail to regain control, and as its legs buckle beneath it, it crumples to the ground, kicking up dust and muck before an explosion rips it apart. Undaunted, General Dakun orders his forces to press home their advantage. Mechanised infantry detachments, led by Dakun himself, surge forward to hit the tank factory, and their troops spill out. Some burst through the gates while others begin to scale the walls. And before the orcs can respond, 3 Marauder bomber detachments launch an attack run and seriously thin the orc ranks. Termites suddenly spew from the earth around the tank factory. and as the installation is besieged, the orcs are driven deeper back into their city. With Imperial forces rampaging through their territory at will, Big Boss Drunga struggles to keep any semblance of order amongst his ranks. He issues a series of guttural roars to rally his troops, but as Imperial forces press their advantage, things look bleak for the orcs. "Victory is in our grasp, my brothers," yells Dakin. The massive mega loba and all of the big guns of the orcs' main fortress turn their attention to the combat servitors detachment. The deafening roar of their cannon is matched only by the destruction they unleash. Chimera tanks and cyborgs are thrown hundreds of meters into the air. Emerging from the smoke and wreckage is a Warhound Titan Reaper. Their assault on the Super Zap battle fortresses leaves one shattered and the last forced to flee into the refinery. Inside the tank factory, an orc horde launch a counter-attack from the parapets. 2 Chimera tanks are destroyed and a dozen soldiers rest on the ground, but Dakin's forces are strong enough to repulse the horde and take the tank factory. While his saboteurs begin the work for the demolition of the factory, the heavy clanging footsteps of their Blaster Gargant approach. It unleashes a firestorm against the newly emerged formation of tunnelers, killing about 30 soldiers. Imperial forces rampage forward. Both Warlord Titans and artillery receive orders from Dakin to hit the Big Boss fortress. Ira Canentes, armed with melta cannon and a fearsome laser burner, target the Megaloba, crushing all power fields. Behind him, Justitia Solemni, armed with 2 volcano cannon, unleashes the wrath of the Adeptus Mechanicus on the fortress. The Weird Boy Tower is broken in 2, and as it collapses upon itself, it shatters through the fortress, killing dozens of orcs inside. A hail of death spews from the Megaloba in the central fortress. The Warhound Titan is repeatedly struck, and a shot pierces its structure, forcing it to flee, while the Imperial war engines also take a battering. Ira Canentes is rocked by the devastating fire of the orc heavy artillery. In an instant, all its voice shields collapse, and a shot tears through its carapace, leaving it with a steaming crack on its back. The battle rages on in the districts of Gorka, and once again from the sky, 2 Marauder bomber squadrons streak to bombard the Mega Gargant. One of the bombers is torn asunder by anti-aircraft fire before crashing into the belly of the Mega Gargant. A thick column of smoke rises from its shell. While the tunnelers advance towards the Mega Gargant, Dakin and his detachment push out of the tank factory, directly in front of the Blaster Gargant. More of Dakin's troops take up positions before the Blaster Gargant, readying themselves for the impossible task of destroying the lumbering behemoth. While in the desert, numerous Imperial formations are in disarray. Still, the siege of Gorka rages on, but the Imperial stranglehold continues to tighten. The earth-shaking Big Guns battery, under the command of Big Boss Drunga, opens a massive volley of sustained fire against the Titan Ira Canentes. Its only void shield collapses under a storm of gunfire, and 3 Super Zap guns burst open the God Machine's heart, the plasma reactor. With a deafening explosion, the mechanical idol detonates, sending plasma and debris everywhere. Orcs and men are boiled in their skins by the blistering firestorm. The remaining Warlord Titan Justitia Solemni sidesteps the boiling wreckage of his destroyed machine brother. Craving vengeance, Justitia Solemni beats a march to face down the Blaster Gargant in a duel to the death. With the strong support fire of numerous infantry detachments, the Blaster Gargant is struck time and again by the hammer of Imperial firepower. The Warlord Titan and Blaster Gargant answer one another blow for blow. A cannon pierces the thick carapace of the Warlord Titan, further damaging it. But an accurate or lucky las cannon blast strikes through the belly of the Colossus and hits the Gargant's ammunition. Suddenly a huge roar echoes through the bowels of the Gargant before a massive explosion tears it apart, its fireball tearing through the surrounding infantry. The Orcs' guns from the blazing big fortress and also from those in the walls continue pounding the Imperials in the desert. But although Imperial forces there have suffered horrifying losses, it is the threat within Orc walls that is the greatest to their survival. A mob of killer clans surround the Mega Gargant, awaiting the impending Imperial assault. A stormtrooper platoon, mounted within Valkyries, swoop in to launch an assault on the Mega Gargant. The fortress lights up the sky with a battery of big guns. The hail of fire shreds the Valkyries in flight, and as they explode, the incandescent bodies of their stormtroopers are scattered across the ground with the rest of the wreckage. The Orc victory is short-lived, however. As Daikun orders his forces to hit the Mega Gargant with everything they've got, he launches an assault upon the war machine with the Tunneler soldiers. The Dreadnought and Killer clans open fire, but their resistance is futile. While they get to work rigging explosives within the belly of the Mega Gargant, Imperial forces form a protective cordon around it. They've taken the objective, now they must hold it. Manticore missiles rain down upon the Orc refinery, their strikes tearing through the Cult of Speed and wiping them off the face of Gorka. Struck from behind by a battery of big guns and the Super Zap gun, Justicia Solemni suffers 2 critical hits to the reactor. As the glowing fountain of plasma threatens to boil over and overload, dozens of servitors sacrifice their lives in an attempt to tame the chain reaction. Burning plasma is vented, and somehow, inexplicably, the Titan does not fall. Many weapon systems are down and its shell is smoking, but it is still undefeated. The saboteurs have finished their work on the Mega Gargant, and the Imperial ring of steel around it suddenly scatters. Another primary objective rigged to blow, the Imperial troops know that a famous victory is now possible. Orcs across the city howl in horror and disbelief. Their war machines are crumpled, and 2 of their factories are set to blow. And their fortresses are ablaze. Big Boss Drumga calls all of his forces to mount a desperate defence of the refinery. Across Gorka, hordes of boys and knobs spill out of the remaining buildings, determined to make the Imperials pay for this outrage. Daikun's forces have suffered bitter losses, but once again he rallies them for one final push on the besieged city. In awe of their leader, the Imperial forces issue a roar and brace themselves for the final push. Manticore artillery batteries support 2 Marauder bomber formations to unleash a barrage of fire upon the Orc mob perched upon the fortress adjacent to the refinery. The building is rocked under the barrage, but somehow the Orcs soak up the hail of incoming fire. A ragtag mob of Orcs set their sights on the stricken warlord Titan, Justicia Solemni, and hit it with everything they've got. Taking yet more damage, it staggers on, smoke billowing from every crack in its hull. But the god machine protects its son. The soldiers around it stare at the miracle. Once again, Justicia Solemni emerges from the blanket of fire and flames burning around it. Still standing, still operational. Aristoteles Daikun orders his regimental HQ to advance rapidly and occupy the refinery. They do so, scattering any demoralised Orcs in their path. Once again, teams of saboteurs are set to work, but there are still Orcs nearby. Though not for long, the last Manticore detachment, together with the Warlord Titan and the survivors of the Praetorian combat servitors, open fire on the battered Orcs in the refinery. Completely undone by the ferocious siege, they are forced into a final retreat. The Orcs are in tatters. Marauder bombers once again drop from the sky and tear through the Orc artillery in a devastating bombardment. Fully encircled and in full denial of everything they are witnessing, Orc Stormboys fight on. Equipped with crude but effective jump packs, they rush out to meet Valkyries and Stormtroopers, and ultimately, death. Gorka is ablaze, and the battle is won. As soon as the saboteurs rejoin their detachment, Daikun orders a full disengagement. The Imperial army, itself badly battered, swarm to the main gates and then into the desert. General Daikun looks on at the remnants of his great force. There are so few wounded. Too many have fallen, but winning is all. One last time he addresses his troops. I promised you pain, but you have repaid me in glory! Now rejoice, for we witness the true face of victory! Booming concussions shake the very foundations of the battlefield as the tank factory, the Mega Gargant, and the oil refinery suddenly light up the sky. The massive blast wave which tears through the city flattens buildings and incinerates the last few Orc survivors. The huge fireballs spew up into the sky and form thick mushroom clouds which signal the end of the industrial sector of Gorka. The siege is won, but the war continues for Daikun's forces.